Hello everyone, welcome to the AppSec Jenga channel. Today we are talking about management of the bug bounty program and we have an amazing guest joining us, a skilled manager of a successful bug bounty program, which is now ranked in the top 10 programs by the number of resolved reports. Oleg, welcome.
Hi Denis, thanks for the introduction. I'm really excited to be here today with you and the AppSec Jenga audience. Hope we'll have a fruitful conversation.
To begin with, before we get into the details of your work, I think our guests would be interested to know more about your background. Could you please introduce yourself to our audience?
So speaking of me and my background, I started my way in cybersecurity at university, but frankly speaking, didn't see myself in this field until I started an internship at one cybersecurity company. It was way different from what we had in the uni. I got some understanding about the industry, what cybersecurity is in the real world, what I should learn, and what options for further growth I have. I've selected the red team, and still consider myself to be in this corner of the boxing ring. I've been part of a pentest team and leading one for some time. Our team was working on all sorts of assessments and security researchers, including IoT and smart contracts. After that, I joined my current team to change something, to try myself in vulnerability management, to see how bug bounty works from the inside and to work with people more, as I always wanted.
What skills from your background do you find the most useful according to your nowadays responsibilities? Let's say you had to recruit a teammate to share your responsibilities and support you on a daily basis. What particular skill set would you search for?
I believe it's patience and stress resistance. As part of the triage team, you'll be working with different people from all around the world with different mentality, characters, communication skills, etc. You'll have to explain things that are obvious to you again and again. On the other side, researchers have their own point of view and you'll have to try to get it and find a compromise. And the same situation with developers you'll share bugs with. Of course, technical skills are also required. I believe it's better if you have hands-on experience with penetration testing, report delivery, and SSDLC in general. The more, the better. A huge bonus would be participation in bug bounty programs. Then you'll have a better understanding of researchers, their thoughts, and testing approaches.
Talking about requirements, is it mandatory to have experience in submitting or resolving bug bounty reports?
No, that's not mandatory, but might help a lot to understand both sides you connect, researchers that submit bugs and developers that fix them.
What bug bounty platform are you working on right now and for how long?
For now we cooperate with HackerOne. We've been with them since the beginning and for more than 5 years already. I'm actually impressed with their progress through the years, how they improve their platform and the process, and with the ways they do it, thinking both of researchers and companies. They have grown into a huge community of great people who learn from each other, support each other, and make the community better.
How has the bug bounty landscape evolved since you started in this field?
The main difference is the focus on different bugs. I can see it reflected in the different bug types that we've encountered over the years. One year you have tons of open redirects, the other everything about broken access control. Of course, the reason for this lies in the general security posture. Developers learn from their mistakes and security teams implement more or better internal procedures. As a result, reports we receive become more and more complicated and interesting, those that require the use of a chain of vulnerabilities. Of course, now we see a huge spike in using automation and AI by bug bounty hunters, but it's the same for security teams. Tools and scanners we use improve, become faster and more precise, make our work easier and relieve us of some of our responsibilities and daily tasks, giving us more ability to work on process improvements, implementing new approaches and enlarging coverage. This makes researchers' work more difficult and requires better and deeper knowledge. We push each other forward as healthy competition should be.
Even though your position requires a lot of flexibility and different approaches to submissions in your program, what is your daily routine as a bug bounty triager?
For now, my working day consists of reading emails, replying to emails, comments, messages, holding meetings with other teams and vendors, moving Jira tickets and HackerOne reports from one state to another, and thinking of what else we can improve. but we have a team of 5 engineers that share tasks among themselves. Some are dedicated to HackerOne reports and everything that is related to the triaging process, reproducing bugs, communicating with researchers and the HackerOne triage team, sharing bugs with developers, and trying to get any information about it from them. It's crucial to identify if this bug is going to be fixed. We are trying to avoid situations when we intake the report, awarded with some generous bounty, send it to developers, and then it just sits there in the backlog for a few years and gets closed as accepted risk. With the statement like, "It's a known issue, we are not going to fix it since the fix will break the whole application logic." I've seen it tons of times and it's impossible to predict without proper communication and without commitment from all parties. I would say we spend half of our working time communicating, and it can't be changed if you want to build a healthy environment that produces results. After that, if you have some spare time, you can work on improvements, automation, implementing new processes, approaches, tools, etc. And don't forget about collecting statistics and preparing comprehensive reports, all of sorts and types. Numbers and graphs work the best both for management to enlighten the amount of work you cover and the difference you make, and for developers to stimulate them to work on fixing existing bugs and implementing new approaches to prevent them from appearing in the future.
It is obvious that the bug bounty program is not the only source for vulnerabilities when it comes to the whole vulnerability management process in big companies. How do you think it is proper to prioritize the findings from this source among the other ones? For example, comparing it to SAST or DAST solutions and regular penetration testing engagements by external providers.
As for me, every finding makes a difference and has the same value not depending on its source. It is crucial to make all solutions and processes work on the same aim and bring the main result: safe product and better experience for users, developers, security teams, and researchers. Yes, everyone understands that every finding has its own price depending on what stage it was identified. But for me, as a vulnerability management engineer, there is no difference once it turns into a Jira ticket.
Does the prioritization hardly depend on the confirmed severity?
Severity is a different topic to discuss. It is valuable for us to define the bounty and explain to the developers how critical it is to fix. I would say that once we create a Jira ticket, severity helps to define the ticket's priority. But there are a lot of other factors. Are there any prevention mechanisms that cover risks or make potential attack insufficient? How easy it is to fix it? What is the development team's workload? Are there any other components that might be impacted by the fix, and others? You might have a ticket with high or even critical severity, but it sits in a backlog for months because of some irresistible circumstances.
What do you need to take into account when running penetration testing engagements when there is a bug bounty program in place?
On one hand, it looks good to have both engagements totally separated, to have this sort of competition when a dedicated or external penetration testing team tries to show the importance of their services. However, I believe that it will bring much more value if they are aware of existing bugs, or even have access to bug bounty reports. We should remember that the pentest team has much less time and capacity than the whole bug bounty community, but they usually have wider access to components and functionality. Information about existing bugs, methods they were identified might help them to concentrate attention on places, patterns, approaches, and bring better results. From a bug bounty program perspective, it's also a good thing to highlight known issues to researchers. Not in details, but still. But in most cases, it's really not possible to be so open to the bug bounty community. So please don't hold a grudge against us when your phenomenal report gets closed with claiming this issue was previously identified by the internal team. On our program, in such cases, we try to encourage researchers with a small bonus for the time they spent.
It is still a common practice for a lot of companies to have a dedicated page on their website informing about points of contact which ethical hackers should use in case they found vulnerabilities in this company's software. What do you think are 3 main reasons to switch from announcing vulnerability disclosure program on your company's website or using security.txt to running a bug bounty program on a dedicated platform?
I think you just have to want it. Running a bug bounty program is not only about receiving bugs from researchers and paying money for findings. It's a big responsibility, and it will change your company processes and your attitude towards security. You have to remember that it requires large investments, bounty pool, dedicated engineer or team, contracts with the platform fees, etc. Running a bug bounty program makes a big difference, but it also requires your dedication and investment.
Talking about program types, what are the pros and cons of running a public or private bug bounty program?
The private program gives you better control over activities researchers perform on your scope. It allows you to create a trusted community where you can be more open, provide deeper access to researchers, and even make sort of experiments. But you have smaller coverage, and all the traffic activity relies on this bunch of bug hunters you invited. As a result, you'll have to keep them interested in your program and your scope. I think private program is either a step to a public one or an addition to existing public program. Public bug bounty program gives you a lot of interest from all sorts of researchers, and as a result, a lot of spam, duplicates, and informative reports. And you're out of control of researchers' activities. Not all of the bug hunters follow program rules. I believe some of them don't even read it. On the other hand, you have a lot of skilled researchers in different topics and techniques. As a result, you can be sure your product will be assessed from every possible angle.
Okay, what things decide whether the scope would be in the public or private program if they are both?
In general, it's all about sensitivity and access level, but in most cases you wouldn't use both for similar reasons. We have tried utilizing such approach once to perform initial assessments of new assets. New assets were first added to the private program for evaluation by trusted researchers. So, as a result, it allowed us to onboard new assets to the scope more smoothly. Also, you have to remember that running both public and private programs is not so cheap.
How to find the right moment to move from one to another?
Once you see that you overgrow the private program, or as I said before, when your company is ready to take this responsibility, you just have to be prepared for it. Every team member is 100% free for triaging. Developers are aware of what will happen with their workload in the next few weeks. Everyone has strategic reserves of coffee and Red Bull. Being serious, you have to define the scope, make sure that the majority of open vulnerabilities for the scope are fixed, and the asset owners are warned and have no complaints. Once your program turns public, there will be a huge spike of everything. Network traffic, malfunctions, SOC alerts, new vulnerabilities, messages, emails, etc. It won't last forever, but you have to be ready for it.
If you had experience moving from a private to public program, how big is the difference in the quality of reports?
I wouldn't say there is a huge difference in the quality. You just receive more reports from a bigger number of researchers of different levels. Of course, if you had just a few top-level bug hunters invited to your private program, you'll be surprised.
And what do you think of VDPs? In which cases is it an appropriate solution?
Yeah, why not? If there is no ability to invest a lot of money and time into bug bounty, that's maybe the best thing you can do. Being open to the bug bounty community brings results anyway, especially if you are a famous company. Researchers will be pleased to find even minor bugs in your product. They are mostly very boastful and appreciate all sorts of honor.
This brings us to the next question. How would you recommend to decide on the amount of the rewards, especially for new in-scope targets?
It's very individual. First of all, it depends on the importance of the asset and how much you care about it being hacked. You can always check on other programs of your level from your industry and compare them with your standards and abilities. Based on my experience, the best solution for new in-scope assets is announcing bonuses for findings on them. You won't mess up your awarding system, but will encourage bug hunters to dedicate more attention to new assets.
Speaking about fresh scope, can you give any advice on how to smoothly introduce it in the big bug bounty program?
It's recommended to test them precisely in advance. Run automated scans, perform internal pen tests, force developers to fix existing bugs and analyze the code for other potential bugs of the same type or pattern. Once it's done, you're free to go. You will still have a lot of reports and a lot of attention from researchers. but you will protect yourself from dumb misconfigs, low-hanging fruits, and will save some money on bounties.
Let's imagine the following situation. Two researchers submitted the same vulnerability, but the first one hasn't shown the maximum impact out of it. The second one, whose bug is considered as duplicate, showed real impact and completed the exploitation chain. How do you think it is appropriate to handle such situations?
If you're very generous, just award it again. From my perspective, it depends on the fact if it changed anything in the fixing process. If the priority of the ticket increased and the information from the new report caused some additional tasks, fixes, or prevention mechanisms to be implemented, then yeah, we'll reward it because it brought additional value to us. Otherwise, I wouldn't do it.
When there are no such confusing situations, what is the general process of escalating reported vulnerability throughout your team?
As always, it depends on the company structure, teams, and general processes. In our case, the process is pretty straightforward. Triager from our team picks a report, checks if there are any similar tickets both on the HackerOne platform and Jira, reproduces the steps from the report, evaluates severity from a vulnerability management team's perspective, and if the issue is valid, creates the Jira ticket for further tracking. Since there are dozens of teams in the company with different workflows and processes, next steps may vary. The most common is to assign the ticket to the asset owner for further evaluation and assignment. Since developers have much better understanding of the app, we usually rely on their input in evaluation. Reported issues might be something that devs are already aware of and the fix is already in progress. Or even it's an expected behavior, which usually happens to broken access control vulns, for example. We have predefined SLAs for every severity and encourage developers to follow it. But in the most cases, once the ticket is assigned to the dev, it's totally on their side and the only thing we can do, just remind them about its existence and ask for updates.
I know that on the initial stage, HackerOne triagers are making decision on whether to proceed with the report or not. What is your general experience with the HackerOne triage team?
HackerOne triage team is a huge help for us. They work as the forepost or the filter, sifting out most spam, informatives, duplicates, so we don't have to spend tons of time explaining why a researcher's report does not comply with the program rules. I really like that HackerOne team is pretty flexible about how programs want to build their triage process. We manage to do it in the way we complete each other and minimize the possibility of error. I like these guys.
What are the most common mistakes researchers make when they submitting reports?
It looks like not reading the program page precisely. If we are talking about valid reports, I would like to highlight a few. Lack of reproduction steps and screenshots for POC. It takes a lot of time to get needed information from researchers bit by bit. Such communication might last for weeks, and it's really upsetting both for the researcher and us if in the end it appears that the report is not applicable for the bounty. The second biggest mistake is not thinking about real-life exploitation scenarios and real impact on users or the company. Environment and its conditions are crucial for bug severity or validity. And what annoys us most? Misbehavior, baseless arguments, and timeless begging for a higher bounty. It's okay to defend one's own opinion and provide valid and valuable arguments, but when it turns into a stream of insults or winning, it becomes really annoying and it spoils the impression of you and might lead to a biased attitude from the triage team. We are all human, and we all want respect for ourselves and the work we do.
What is the strangest or funniest bug report you have ever received?
We often receive strange and irrelevant reports, but I remember a really funny one. Once we got a critical report about one of our subdomains, titled RCE on an outdated Jenkins instance. The researcher provided detailed reproduction steps, collected sensitive data, and even managed to get a reverse shell. I was pretty surprised and started the triage process. My first step was to check the DNS records to confirm if the instance really belonged to our company. And to my astonishment, it turned out that the subdomain pointed to localhost. This researcher had hacked their own local instance.
Have you had cases of punishing reliable hackers who have sent you a great number of valid reports after violation of program rules?
Yeah, sadly we had a few. If you violate program rules, you'll be banned for a certain period of time from the program. And it's really upsetting when it happens to the valuable researcher who submitted a lot of valid and interesting bugs, especially when you thought that you had a good trusting relationship.
Talking about mistakes, can you share some mistakes your team made during the long time of managing your program?
We are trying to minimize the amount of errors. Close cooperation with HackerOne triage team and developers helps to bring it close to zero, but it still happens. The most common are misinterpreting duplicates, intaking and awarding bounties to reports which will eventually be recognized as informatives, and of course missing bypasses when retesting. Actually, we always admit our mistakes and communicate them with researchers, trying to turn them into a lesson, not a conflict.
From my point of view, live hacking events are one of the coolest things about bug bounty for both hackers and program maintainers. What particular benefits does the company have running live hacking event?
Live hacking event is a great opportunity to become closer to the bug hunters community and collect a lot of valuable vulnerabilities as a result. To meet in person with top-level researchers, have some open discussions, collect feedback, etc. It makes your program more open and interesting to bug hunters. Live hacking event usually consists of several parts, online and offline. During the whole month, your assets are thoroughly assessed by dozens of highly qualified researchers that compete one with another for better stats. I don't know if there are any other options to perform such a stress test for your products, environments, and your teams. Yeah, it requires a lot of effort, energy, and money, but it pays off for itself.
When it comes to a number of reports received, do you have any statistics or predictions when to expect a high load of reports, or is it a seasonal thing at all?
If we're talking about seasons, it's usually much quieter during summer and winter breaks. And we also have some spikes on March and September. I really don't know what's a cause for it, but I would say it's more eventual thing. You have more attention from bug hunters when there is some additional stimulus, bonus campaign for some assets functionality or bug types, new assets added to the scope, new functionality added to the current product, etc.
How would you recommend to show the value of an ongoing program? For example, what statistics and data should I report to my manager to fully express the value of the bug bounty program?
If you are talking about HackerOne platform, it collects all needed information for you. There is a great analytics tab with dozens of charts that aggregate all sorts of data. Thanks to custom fields that you can add to HackerOne tickets, you can implement almost everything you want. Unfortunately for us, it's usually not enough. In connection with the nature of company structure, we have to collect some specific data from Jira tickets as well. What to report depends on your goals, amount of reports, amount of bounties awarded, average time to first response, or anything else. Prepare a nice looking report template and add there all the information you can collect and find useful. There is a high chance that the first report would not be perfect for the ones you are reporting to, but after a few such reports shared with the management, you will understand what you're expected to present and what can be optimized.
Okay, but how to find talented researchers?
Become interesting for them and they'll come. Higher bounties, more interesting scope, privileged access to some functionality, and most importantly, nice atmosphere where you build healthy communication. That's what attracts researchers. You can always ask the HackerOne team for help with it. They have well-developed scenarios and are happy to help. Actually, live hacking event is one of the best options to attract top-level bug hunters.
After I found my talents, how can I keep their attention on my program?
This is one of the challenges we face continuously. The easiest one, make changes. Update your policy page, increase bounties, add new assets to the scope, etc. Another option is to conduct some temporary bonus campaigns, like higher bounties or additional bonuses for some vulnerability types, bugs on specific assets, or even 200 bonus for every medium bug. The campaign conditions are totally up to you and your imagination.
What options do you have to make your work easier?
Automate everything you can, prepare templates for everything you can, build and describe the process for everything you can. First of all, if you have a well-developed and described pattern process, it's much easier to work and make everyone else follow it and do what you need and how you need it.
And the last question for today. Do you have any use of AI in your workflow?
Sadly, no, we don't. At least for now. Our company is pretty restrictive about implementing new technologies and it requires some time to solve it. But I know some really successful cases of implementing AI into vulnerability management process. Just do not overthink it. AI is a great instrument, but it's not a silver bullet.
Are you using HackerOne's AI Copilot?
Yeah, recently HackerOne introduced its AI Copilot, AI. From what I saw, it works pretty well, but we do not use it for now. In the future, I would really like to play with integrating it into automatic Jira ticket creation, notification on critical bugs, and identifying some patterns between multiple reports to make recommendations for developers.
That's it for today. Thank you so much, Oleg, for sharing your knowledge and experience. It's been a great conversation, and I'm sure our listeners have learned a lot. I truly appreciate you taking the time to join us and share such valuable insights.
Thank you, Dennis, for inviting me. It's been a pleasure.
To everyone watching, don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more episodes on AppSec Jenga. Until next time, stay secure.